Welcome one, welcome all to episode 296 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Saturday, October 25th, 2025. I'm your host, Lohr, the InsipidGhost, joined by my co-host, the intrepid Captain Logun. Today we are also joined by one JamPack Sam, who went hands-on with Halo Campaign Evolved over at Halo Studios. He's also at the Halo Championship World Series event, which we're really excited to talk about as well. We'll be discussing his impressions, the impressions of the internet overall, as well as Xbox's use of AI and reviews for The Outer Worlds 2 are in. I hope you enjoy the show. Logan, we like to start the show by offering words of kindness that have made our gaming weeks better. But first, how are you, my friend?
Good. I just came off the back of a very lengthy review that, for all intents and purposes, an artist never really loves their work. It's rare that they do, that they feel like they've nailed it. But I was working on Outer Worlds 2 review. It's live. If you have the premium edition, you've already got access to it. But otherwise, it comes out on the 29th. And boy, howdy, that is a meaty game. So, but otherwise, just a lot of good news to talk about for the most part when it comes to games. I don't know about businesses, but games are doing well.
Oh man, I'm anxious to hear 30% more of your opinions this week.
Thank you.
Sam, welcome, my friend. I'm one, immensely proud of you. I've always said you're the best of us. Two, would you let the audience know what I might be referring to if they don't already?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to, I was invited to fly out, visit Halo Studios, meet the team, and play the Halo Campaign Evolved Silent Cartographer build a little bit early. And so they invited me out. They looped me in with the Halo World Championship. And so I've been able to go to that. We're on day number 2 now. I'm going to go to that after we end up wrapping up here. And then I'll be at the final Halo event for Infinite, which is kind of a significant milestone for Halo as its history. So it's been a monumental week for me. We were chatting a little bit before the show. You were like, great hard work, well-deserved. I feel like I'm just getting real lucky, like I'm just happy to be here. And so these opportunities are crazy. So I'm incredibly thankful for everything that this week has brought, and hope to be doing more of that in the future.
My friend, it is hard work. You have enjoyed it. You had Exhibition long ago, which was an Xbox podcast you did solo, or presentation, Xbox presentation you did solo. Then you were over at Save the Game Media for a bit, all the while making content, shorts, Instagram, TikToks, everything. And now you're at the Halo World Series. You got to visit Halo Studios. You were a diehard, get your weeklies in every day, every week for Halo Infinite. And then you got to interview the dev team. I watched your interview this morning. It's fantastic, man. It's great to see you getting this deserved success.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It was crazy. That it was very surreal. I know we'll get into more details and chat all about it, but just sitting in the Halo Museum with the devs just side by side and kind of being able to chat with them. I've interviewed people like you have over Zoom calls and Teams calls, but it's kind of surreal whenever you're just like, oh, you guys are real. Like, we're here. Yeah. So that was a big milestone for me, and definitely one of those things where it's like sometimes you hit memories where you're like, in the moment, you're like, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. And that was one of those days. It was super cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. I'm so happy for you. I will say we always start our show with words of kindness. You had shared nothing NDA, but like an anecdote of just being there. With me that really resonated with me and absolutely made my gaming week better. Obviously, you can tell for any listener, I'm under the weather, and so Sam's just shared a small anecdote about his time at the Halo Studios, just nothing big or anything like that, and it just made my gaming week better. So thank you for that. That absolutely lifted my spirits in the best of ways. So I appreciate that. Logan, we always start with words of kindness. What do you have for us this week?
Walter Goggins, the ghoul himself. I was actually, and also Steve Downs and Jen Taylor. I really I was appreciative of all the news this week, but one of the things that really stood out to me was one, there's some news in the voice acting community, which I try to stab at. Like back in the day, I tried hard to get some commercial work done, and it's a tough industry to break into. But shout out to the actors for getting a solid win to start working with the 10 major companies that do voice work. But it was really awesome to see that Bethesda and Halo Studios called in the OG actors for the Ghoul in Fallout, which is coming to Fallout 76, and Halo with the campaign Evolved, bringing in Jen and Steve to redo a lot of their, pretty much all of their lines and getting the principal actors back. It was fantastic to see that they could have used the old stuff, but they wanted to get higher fidelity. They wanted to get the better ones, and they wanted to give them, honestly, a second chance to really kind of, like, with the knowledge of who their characters have evolved to, because back in the day, they didn't really have a whole lot of depth in those. So shout out to voice actors and actors just putting their love into work that normally most actors would want to be like the face. They would want to be like on the box and stuff. And the, you know, Steve and Jen and Walter just kind of put their love into these characters for gamers on a consistent basis is just really nice. Even if, like, Walter may not even play the game, it's just cool that he was willing to actually come and do the Ghoul, because I was worried when they announced that the Ghoul was coming to Fallout 76 that it wouldn't be him. It'd be like a voice alike, like they did with, like, for example, Jack Sparrow in Sea of Thieves was not actually Johnny Depp. It was a voice alike that did it and stuff, but it still sounded pretty good.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Although, to be fair, Johnny Depp was going through some things at the time.
Yeah. I hear he's making a comeback, though.
I've heard that. I'm frozen on my screen. If I mess up for you guys, just message me.
No, you're good. You're
okay.
good.
Cool.
Well, you're frozen, but I like the face that you're making, so I'm just going to leave it at that. No, you're not actually frozen. I'm just messing with you.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, what are we going to do?
Now you're actually frozen for me.
There's a whole lot happening here. Sam, what you got for us?
As far as words of kindness goes?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I put out a post on Threads a couple of minutes before this, but I think my words of kindness go out to everybody that's, kind of helped me over the years. Like, obviously, you guys have been a big part of my kind of content creation journey, but also anybody that's, tuned in over the years, whether it was when I was in high school starting to do this or recently just jumping on the shorts and the TikToks and the Instagram Reels train. Like, I wouldn't be sitting in Seattle without the support of people that have been like, you know what? I'm going to watch that guy instead of the 8 million other people that are out there making content. So for anybody that's ever checked out what I make, that's my words of kindness for the week. I really appreciate it.
Love it, man. That's fantastic. Well, nonetheless, I will point one more time. Everybody go watch Sam's interview. It's absolutely fantastic. But do that after our episode here, because we are going to talk about our reactions to the announcement that Halo Campaign Evolved is launching in 2026. It's coming to Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. This will be the first time Halo is on a PlayStation console. I'm sure that's a pretty big deal in a lot of spaces, but I feel like we also knew that was coming. I'm excited to see this project because when I first looked at the opening trailer, I admit to being a bit lukewarm. I feel like I've seen Halo before. I've been hurt plenty of times by Halo, despite my massive love for it. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. And then upon going back, watching Sam's interview, watching the dev roundtable, which was a lot of PR speak, but also gave you some good info, and then just watching the true trailer and 13-minute gameplay that they put out, I'm pretty darn impressed with this one, all things considered. For any listener that's unaware, this is a fully rebuilt campaign with 4K visuals. It's going to have 3 new missions of story content. You'll be able to play with up to 4 players co-op across the entire campaign, across all platforms. You have an optional sprint mechanic, which is a big deal to some people that want like that truism from back in the old days, and then others want the more modern approach. And then they've added in a number of new things like the ability to hijack vehicles, pilot the Covenant Wraith, 9 new weapons that were not in the original game. There is a lot to break down with this one, but I went from being to now I'm actually rather excited about it, despite its lack of multiplayer versus, which I do want you guys to ask me about at some point. That was my quick take. Logan, what was yours? And then we're going to really pick Sam's brain. And listeners in the chat, if you have questions for Sam, who has been hands-on with it and at Halo Studios, drop them in chat as well.
So I was at first I was pretty like shell shocked by just the sheer look of it, right? Like it we were talking last night while we were talking about over Fortnite and stuff, that it was just kind of like, it looked weird. It looked like every other Unreal game that I was used to, but it was Halo, and that felt there was like a cognitive dissonance that I was having while I was watching it. Subsequently, like later that night, I went through and started watching the behind the scenes stuff. And then this morning I was watching the interview that Sam did and just a couple of the trailers over and over again. And I've gotten used to it, and I think it looks really, really good. I think the lighting really kind of stands out as far as like just how beautiful it looks when you see that kind of ray tracing experience on there.
Mm-hmm.
In 4K, it makes a lot more difference on the TV. Like it definitely looks better in video on 4K when you're watching the trailers for it, as opposed to like a 1080 stream that's got like compression and stuff. So, the 4-player co-op campaign is interesting. That was one that I was not expecting. The 3 missions that they have, which I think they said were going to be like little prequels to the actual main story, I thought was cool. I can't wait to see like what Chief and Johnson get into, like if there's like some story there. One of the interesting things that they said that I was left kind of questioning is they said that they went back to the storyboards for a lot of when they were checking to see like how things were intended to go back in the day. And it's always interesting to hear that, because storyboards are kind of the rough blocking for a lot of the stuff that you do in games and in film, but a lot can change through production. And it's nice that they're at least kind of, we have like the original game to go back and play through. But it's always kind of interesting to see like why they would go back to the storyboards themselves as opposed to just the game itself, because the game itself was the finished product. But to look at the essence of what they wanted to do, to me, feels like they didn't want to just do what they did in 2015, which is the recreation, like the facelift that they did with the remaster. So I think it's cool. It still feels weird to think that, like, for all intents and purposes, we can all agree like Microsoft is just third party now, right? They produce stuff for Xbox, but if it's going to be a Halo game, there's a pretty good chance now that it's going to be on any platform that they can possibly do, right?
Yeah, but let's not go down that road yet. But yeah, because I do want to loop back to a lot of the potential of this project. But before we do that, I think it's worth getting Sam's impressions on like what he played, because I agree it did look like an Unreal Engine event, but then the more I look back at it, I was like, oh, I'm pleased. Sam, can you talk us through what it was like to be there, see it, and then play it?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever we all sat down, they had kind of like your test benches. It's the playtest lab that we've seen in some of the behind the scenes looks. And so when you boot it up, a lot of people were immediately like jumping in and doing the testing and stuff. And so I kind of like took a step back and sat in as a fan first, and then kind of went into the content creator mode, right? So like I just booted it up, and I was like kind of letting it wash over me. And so what we initially booted into is what the beginning of the trailer actually shows off. So it's just that kind of intro to the silent cartographer. So you're seeing that all for the first time. And as it's kind of all unwinding, like if anybody hasn't seen the trailer and the gameplay that's been shown off, take a pair of like decent, good headphones, kind of put it on, just kind of like focus on the experience that it's delivering. And I think for me, that was something that was really special, is because it kind of like gives you the chills of like you're playing the way that I described it. Whenever the developers asked me what I thought, I said it plays the way that I remember the game playing, but the way that I remember, not the way it actually plays, right? So like it's the embodiment of my memories versus what I actually experience when I go back and play Combat Evolved, and I'm like, oh, 2001, like really coming in strong there. So I think that visually, the first things that I noticed whenever I sat down to go hands-on is that it is still an early build of the game, not to a degree that it's like totally, like bad by any stretch of the imagination, but you will have some texture pop-ins. That's evident in the trailers that we saw. I mean, that's nothing that's new to anybody. You'll see the shadows kind of popping in on some of the architecture over in the distance, or mountain might get a little bit more texture all of a sudden. If a scene's changing, I think that's the kind of stuff that'll be ironed out through development. But I appreciated the fact that it wasn't just a super polished vertical slice of the game. Like it's not like they focused 2 years of development specifically on this little chunk, and then the rest of it's just in total disarray. It really feels like they said, hey, here's progress of one of the most popular missions. Let's get them out because I feel like this is presentable at this time. And so that's kind of my initial take on it. But then whenever you get into it, the lighting, as it bounces off of stuff like the Needler, like the way the lighting plays around in Unreal Engine 5, it adds a kind of depth that I haven't seen from Halo to date. Like, I think that's something that's really special and can definitely shape a new kind of experience that we haven't gotten before, which is why I think that old time fans are going to be just as interested as the newcomers as well.
Sam, do you think, or I guess, did you get a sense that this is a reboot of sorts? Is this like the Batman Begins, where they're taking what was true to the form, but they're kind of restarting everything, or is this strictly the same story updated with modern elements? And I ask that because they're adding in new weapons, the ability to hijack. They're putting in those prequel missions. Is this a chance for them to kind of restart the Halo story with the spirit of old Halo, but for the new generation? Or is this just the old story made modern?
I think this is a little bit of both. I think it's the old story made modern, but I think that doubles as a reboot. And I think that this is the turning point of the next 25 years of Halo. Because when you look at it from the console perspective and you have it coming to PlayStation, that's a monumental shift for the franchise. And so I think this is a chance to kind of reestablish the world that made people fall in love with Halo to begin with. But then, as we all kind of feel in a way, the story of Infinite probably is not going to be going forward. Like, I didn't talk to the devs about anything with the next game, so that's nothing that I've like heard or confirmed or anything like that. But the way that it feels, this feels like a reboot, like you're saying. And then going forward, it's probably going to be something that will feel like a natural shift for people that are playing on PlayStation for the first time. So that even if you didn't have that 25 years of experience with Halo previously, you can play the Halo Campaign Evolved game through and through, and then kind of enjoy whatever they bring next with the new campaign, the multiplayer suite, all of that. So I think it kind of doubles as both, where it is that nostalgia grab for a lot of people, where you're like, yeah, it's the Halo that I grew up on. I want to play it again, even if I've switched to PlayStation or I play on PC now or whatever. But it is also doubling as that kind of soft, hey, Halo's back and it looks really pretty kind of thing for other people to be able to jump into.
Fans are getting to see the trailer again right now. I look at it and I wonder, like, what type of liberties they'll take if they are putting in new weapons and you can hijack vehicles and such. Are we going to see brutes in this first campaign? Did they give you any indication of liberties they might be taking in that respect, or no?
Not directly as it relates to brutes. I do know that they're adding in the same way they're adding in new weapons. They are going to add in new enemy variants as well. I know somebody called out that it looks like they're pulling some of the Infinite Grunt builds into the game, as well as potentially other enemies that were thrown in to other games along the way, since this is kind of like a slice of the overall Halo lore that's been built out over the years. That kind of gives them some liberties, and they're pulling from different games along the way. So I would not be surprised to see some different enemy variants that might not be tried and true to Combat Evolved sneak in there.
I do want to talk more about like things that this game could potentially do, whether it be use of third person or adjusting and tweaking story elements. Stick with me. But before we do, can you talk about just playing the game? How did it feel to play?
It feels really good. So whenever I jumped in, I immediately went. And I think the first thing that I saw in the customization menu, because, you know, we all go in, we tweak the sensitivities, we kind of like see what's going on there. And so you've got all of your different control schemes. Like, I ended up landing on green thumb for a little while, and I was kind of like bouncing around between different default versus all of the little tweaks you can make. Obviously, you can remap everything. But the cool thing is that while it does feel modern when you jump into it, you know, it feels like you're playing a when I say you're playing a Call of Duty, I don't mean you're like, you know, wall bouncing and sliding around, but it feels like you're picking up and you're playing a modern FPS. But if you don't like that, you can go in and disable everything. So if you don't like sprint in your Campaign Evolved playthrough, you can disable that. If you don't like ADS, you can disable that. So they've added in new things that make it welcoming off the bat. But if you're a purist and you still want to go back and play this, it's all very customizable in that way. But just booting in, playing for the first time, it feels like it would be like if Halo Combat Evolved came out in 2026. That's the way the game feels. So it would have all of those modernizations that come with a modern game like that.
That surprises me because, you know, you go from Blame Engine to Slip Space, and now Unreal Engine. So it's the third. Slipspace had some blame in it, kind of in the back end, but nonetheless, it's kind of the third engine we've seen with Halo. It felt like Halo to you?
Yeah. That was one thing that I was chatting with the devs about. I said I was very surprised that, like, you're seeing Warthog gameplay right here. The Warthog feels like a Warthog. Like, it's not like it's just an asset that's been plopped in from the Unreal Engine 5 library and given a coat of paint to look like a Warthog. Like, it all feels authentically like a Halo experience. When you jump, it's got that kind of floatiness to it that you would get from Combat Evolved. The way that the bullets land and the hit markers that you see popping up on screen, it feels very authentic to what Halo brings. And so it's a little blend of like the modern Halo that you would get, but it still has that Combat Evolved identity that I think they worked really hard to try and lock down. And I think that intent, talking to the devs, there were two things that stood out to me in all the conversations that I had over the past couple of days. And the first is that the studio leadership is very focused on giving the developers that are making this game creative autonomy to call the shots and make something that is authentic to the world that they've all known and loved over the years. And so that's something that was really good for me to hear. And then beyond that, they're also focused on making sure that it is true to what the original game brought, but making something that's welcoming, so that while, the Master Chief Collection is fun for people like us that have played it over the past decade plus, if you boot into the Master Chief Collection as somebody who might be jumping over from Battlefield 6, you're like, oh, I might play around here for the nostalgia, but it's not bringing that experience that I want to spend 40, 50, 60 hours finding everything, playing with different skulls, that kind of thing. So in that way, I do think that they've taken Unreal Engine 5 and made something that stays true to what Combat Evolved brought by really honing in on that feel of how the characters move, how the guns play, how the world feels to kind of move around in, with obviously the tweaks to accommodate 4-player co-op and potentially adjust the story flow a little bit.
And I noticed they did the 4-player co-op being a good point, because they brought up how they added an extra seat to the Warthog, and they might have had to transition some of the hallways and stuff like that. Did you all play in co-op yourself, or were you strictly solo?
Yeah, I was just playing solo, so I didn't get a chance to go hands-on with co-op. I know they were joking around in the interview. They called it the golf cart seat. So, like, on the back left side of the Warthog, I think it was shown off in the roundtable interview as well. You can kind of hop on the back, and you'll have a Marine sitting on the back. So I didn't get a chance to play. I know I've had other people ask me questions around, like, is it just going to be 4 Master Chiefs in the campaign with potentially different colors, or are people going to be Marines, or what's the situation there? So I don't have an answer, unfortunately. But I do think it's a good addition, considering how a lot of people, especially with the rise of things like Warzone, have a squad of 4 that they roll with. And so I think that makes a lot of sense to make that transition smoother for people that might be wanting to go in and play modern Halo experiences without having to axe one of the guys off their roster.
Mr. Jimbo 5895, welcome to the show, asks if you were playing on PC or Xbox.
My gameplay that is on my content, and then what I was playing on, was a Series X dev kit, so effectively Series X hardware. So that seems to be what everything here lines up with my experience. I think this gameplay is from the Series X dev kit as well, so this is the experience you can expect from that.
That surprised me.
Did they happen to I was going to make a bad joke there, but did they happen to mention how it's going to work with people who want to disable things like ADS and sprint with cohorts who don't want to turn that off? Because I can imagine anyone that doesn't want to have sprint is probably going to be slower than people who have sprint. So
they didn't address it specifically. I would just imagine it's the same thing as a control scheme, like, your sensitivities or anything like that. Like, it seems like it's not something that will affect an entire server or like group. But I think that, if you have people that are using sprint, obviously you probably want to have sprint involved. But that's a good question. I didn't ask that directly, so I don't have a specific answer, but it seems like it's just individual based settings you can pick from.
So I feel like this is such a great opportunity to explore what Halo can be, because they've removed competitive multiplayer from this particular delivery, which means they can focus a lot on other things. And I think that's probably the right choice, given the requirements of a competitive multiplayer, live service elements, everything from Fortnite, Warzone, Battlefield, Rivals. You have to have steady delivery of content. They can just focus on getting this out the door. And I feel like Gears of War Reloaded might have taught them some things not to do. So I'm curious, with Campaign Evolved, are we likely to see armor customizations? Because I'm a big fan of the Halo Infinite armor over Combat Evolves. Are we going to see, different things but Infinite eventually got the ability to play in third person? Do we see that stuff happen here, or are they going to stick strictly to the mainline approach of what Halo is? Either one of you thoughts on this?
I've been talking a lot, Logan. You can take this one first, and I'll jump in.
I'm actually really curious about this because it feels like with the advent of Microsoft deciding to put their first party content on third party platforms, it feels like they are trying to do whatever they can to introduce people to the franchises that they may not have had or have like left for a while. So it's interesting that they've decided just to go with the story bits of this, which I would hope that, they would want to, if they're going to take liberties with like placement of items and the way the game looks and adding weapons and creating new missions for it, that they would at least build in some customization for stuff like the Infinite armor. Because you say that Halo Infinite's armor is the one that you like the most. Mm-hmm. I personally like the one that Master Cheeks wears in the Halo show.
Had to say it, didn't you? Had to say
it. Had to get that in there. But it would be nice, especially with 4-player co-op. It does seem like it's one of those things. Like, I hope that if they're putting enough love in investment into creating this and developing it around having 4 players for the campaign, adding new skulls and things like that, I would hope that they would allow you to do some customization for your Spartan as well too, because obviously everyone knows what Chief looks like, and having 4 Chiefs just run around without any kind of variance is going to be a little confusing, or just it seems like an oversight if they don't address that part of it, especially compared to everything else that they're putting into it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that that's not a question that I asked directly, but it's a good one. I think that for me, I didn't ask it because I never really, if I'm playing a single player game, I typically just jump in, and I'm not like the character creator customization guy. I'm like, hey, roll me a Necro in Diablo season 87 and I'm good to go. Let's see what we get. But I agree that there should be some kind of system there, even if it's something basic, like just tweaking helmet stuff. Like, I think with the 25th anniversary being aligned with when this game's coming out, there's a huge opportunity to make this be something that kind of honors that legacy, right? And so if you were, if you could have the Reach Squad, that you like take all of these different variants of all the characters that have played a huge role in Halo over the years, and kind of bake those in as a rotation. I think that would be something that I would imagine, as somebody who's like, your armchair expert guy that has never developed a game in his life, but you can take some of those models and pull them in and kind of remap them a little bit over some character models and potentially make that happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that's definitely interesting, and I hope they do that. I think the other thing too is that, like what Luke was saying, it's interesting to think about Halo as a standalone single player product in 2026, because so much of that skins grind has evolved to where we align that with battle passes or something where you've got to like continually earn it through repetitive gameplay, whether it's playing matches or grinding seasons or whatever it might be. And so obviously you can unlocking skins has been around for decades, so it's not going to be anything new, but it'll be interesting to see if they bring that kind of customization, how they dial it back from the, hey, Halo Infinite, Operation Pass, Event Pass, whatever you've got, here's how you can earn your stuff, to literally going back to headshot 50 grunts with your Magnum and you unlock Halo 2 anniversary Chief armor, like something like that. I think that would be a really nice nostalgic throwback of just the way the game design used to be. It sounds simple, but like I would love to see them bring that kind of thing back.
I want to pause briefly and give a shout out to Freight Conductor, who is very generous and dropped a $20 super chat. Thank you immensely for supporting the show, man. We really appreciate you. Freight Conductor says, in a weird way, Halo is coming home for me. I beat Halo campaign on my family PC, and now I'll be playing it on my PC all over again. I love that sentiment. I love that idea of spinning it around. I also appreciate that you're celebrating it just being out again. I know a lot of people are wondering what it means for it to be on PlayStation, and I listened in on Sam's interview about them going to PlayStation. It was one of the first questions you asked, and I think very appropriate from the developer. They said a lot of people might have played the first Halo, but then moved on to other PlayStation, to PlayStation, and later console releases, and as a result of that, missed out on subsequent Halos, or now they're returning to the franchise. And I'm really excited to see PlayStation audiences come to this one, because it looks to me to be a better release than Gears of War Reloaded, which I was disappointed in. But I want to loop back, Logan and Sam, the idea that you might have Noble Team in there as optional stuff, or you can unlock different variants. I would really love to see that as an option, because to your point, Sam, about battle passes, a lot of that's been relegated to battle pass systems and things like that. But I really enjoyed the progression of Halo Reach and how you unlocked different armors as you go. And so if you do get that headshot this many, you get access to this helmet type thing. It'd be pretty cool there. And then I liked how Halo Reach specifically had you replay missions in the campaign as like daily, weekly challenges. They could do something special with Campaign Evolved here. Again, I'll go back to the third person element. Logan, you were with me for Resident Evil of all things when we saw that presentation, and everyone cheered when you could suddenly switch perspectives. In every Obsidian title this year, we saw them be able to change from first to third person. Do you think that's a possibility, given that in a world of armor sets, you might be able to go that, or are they going to stick truly to first person here?
I don't know, man. It's a really interesting question. I mean, with Infinite, it was definitely on the table for them to play around with the idea. Studios have their own initiatives for all intents and purposes. So like Obsidian's desire to release their titles with the option of going from first person to third person, that could just be an Obsidian thing.
Could be.
It could be that it's a Microsoft request of the studios to try and create that. We didn't see Gears Reloaded come in with a first person perspective. So I think it's just one of those things. It's like, maybe that's just an Obsidian's choice in this case. Playing third person with Halo, it's one of those situations where I always think back to the reason why first person is so important. And a lot of it has to do with telling the story from a perspective that feels like you are the person in that suit, and you get to experience what's going on, and you are chief in this. And I think that calls back to what I think a lot of us really loved about Halo is the feeling of being chief and being this Spartan and being this hero that was going to kind of understand what was going on with the ring and stop the Covenant from preventing world destruction at a universal level, and then finding out about the flood and having to be in those situations where like you are in those tight corridors and the flood are just literally flooding in. Having that be in first person makes the experience so much more stressful and anxiety inducing, because it's so scary to be down in there when they start just coming at you and all you have is your flashlight and a shotgun at your side. So having it in third person, I think, would take away from some of the good story beats that are told through Halo because of that first person perspective, because you can't always see what's behind you. But that's just my personal preference. Like I played through Obsidian's The Outer Worlds 2. I toggled between first and third for quite a while, but to be perfectly honest, the gunplay felt so good in that game that I mostly just kind of stuck to first person in that one, and it felt a lot better. It felt like I was the person that was actually experiencing all of that, and I feel the same way in like Sea of Thieves and stuff.
Sam?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, but I didn't, number one, whenever I went into the menu, I didn't see it explicitly like a toggle for third person from what I saw. Also wasn't looking for one, but I didn't see one immediately, and they didn't mention any of that whenever they were giving us kind of the rundown. I think for me, I kind of agree with Logan where it's like, you are Master Chief, right? So you're diving in and it's meant to see the world through his eyes. I'm also curious how, like thinking about your first encounter with the hunters, whenever you're just making your way through the silent cartographer, how would that change that moment of like, oh, there's a huge guy right there. Like for somebody that's not accustomed to playing Halo at all, it kind of takes some of that fear out when you can see like, oh, I'm just a person in this world versus I am in this world with these two giant hunters. So I think that probably I wouldn't be surprised for them not to see the third person in this game. But I would love to see it brought back for future iterations, especially when it comes to stuff like Firefight, like in Halo Infinite, whenever they added that mode in, which I think a report came out where Firefight's now the most popular multiplayer element potentially. But it's a huge, boon for the community to be able to jump in and play some of that first person versus the third person stuff. So keeping that flowing through the rest of the future of Halo is definitely something that I would love to see come back, even if it's not the right fit for Campaign Evolved.
Yeah, no, I agree. It looks to me like this is going to be the start of something, and I sincerely hope it is the start of something, because initially not sold, then the more I investigated, I'm really excited for this one. I didn't expect to be. When I first talked about it with our friends from other podcasts, I was like, I don't know, man. I feel like I've played Halo. But then the more I look at this, I'm like, maybe I really want to play Halo again. And like, I love Halo. I've always loved Halo. It's just something special to me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. We did get a question from the trophy room from my frenemy and son, Joseph Moran. He says, question for the show. Logan, Sam, love your dynamic. Shut up, Joe. Did you get the feeling that this is an early or late 2026 release?
I have the feeling that it's going to be earlier in the year. So I think that whenever this game eventually comes, and again, totally going off of vibes, I feel like this is probably going to be like an August release. Like that's where I'm kind of like thinking about it in my mind as somebody who's played it, thinking about the additional work that has to be done to bring it to PlayStation 5, to polish the Unreal Engine 5 engine. I feel like August is realistic. Because then that kind of gives a runway, like a marketing runway, to build up to November 15th for the 25th anniversary. And then you can kind of have like your big sizzle reel trailer or whatever it might be. So my bet is on July, August, probably around that time frame. I could easily see this being like a huge, it feels like a good game to drop in the middle of the summer, even though it feels like a pretty huge thing for us as people that are on an Xbox podcast right now. For the people that are external that might be looking forward to Wolverine or whatever you might have on PlayStation 5, that feels like the right time to be like, oh, Halo's coming out on July 30th. Yeah, sure. Before school goes back, let me boot up Halo and play through it on my PlayStation and platinum it. It sounds fun. So I think that's when it'll land.
Logan?
That's a really interesting question, because while Sam was talking, and I was listening, Sam, don't worry. Also, what is this water stuff? Can you open up that fridge? Because I'm willing to bet there's a bunch of Monster and Dr. Pepper in there that they gave you.
This has been empty all week. I have one cupcake that I'm saving for later that I got from the bar downstairs. That's the only thing in it.
Oh, see, okay, all right. Well, first off, Halo Studios, you need to make sure that the fridges are stocked with Dr. Pepper and Monster Energy drink. There needs to be a whole bunch of, Anyway, to go to Joe's question, it's interesting to think about the marketing cycle on this, because what we saw was pre-release content, which means that there's a good chance that they're probably out of alpha and in beta already internally. And I think if this was going to be in early 2026, then they would have probably tried to show this off earlier to get a gauge on how things are going, to then decide if it was going to stick to the early 2026 or later. But because of the marketing beats that they had with Outer Worlds 2, with Grounded 2, with other titles that they did on the showcase back in June, it tells me that they're either getting ahead of the game by trying to get the development of this shored up for early 2026, and they held off on promoting it early and are trusting in that this is going to be something that people are actually going to be happy with, and that they're a lot further along than they're actually presenting as far as the pre-release alpha footage that we saw, which to me seems interesting, because I think if you're wanting to show something that looks good, you want to show something at the most recent that it can be. So you should already have like beta footage at this point. So if they aren't showing beta footage in October, and they're probably working on beta internally, I'm assuming that they'll probably out of beta and working on polish by the time the showcase comes around next year. And June 2026 will probably be the Halo Campaign Evolved showcase, as well as like Fable. And that will probably be their main beats for that, which means that Fable and Halo will then be like last quarter of the year, from like September on. And that will be kind of what they plan on. Because otherwise I would have imagined that if they planned for this to be early, they would have wanted to be talking about this back last June. But because June was filled up with so many games that are coming out right now, they're either ahead of the game and they're biding their time on the marketing, which is weird because they're usually really not too great on the whole marketing front. But it feels like it's going to be a later 2026, just based on like what we've seen, what we know that they've already got in the hopper, and what they can do with the next showcase.
Two things to add to that. I know, like at the World Championship right now, whenever they have like a hub in the middle where Anubis I saw was playing, and he got to go in line and go hands on as well. One thing that they're doing, very cool. One thing that they're doing is after you finish, you can put your survey data back of like, hey, what did you think about the game? What would you have changed? So they're actively, it's not just hey, come play the game. They're actively asking for feedback from the people that are on site. Which, you know, on one hand, it could be the fill out your survey at the end of your receipt and get $500. Like it could be something that just gets totally thrown into the ether and it's just a nice gesture. But I feel like the fact that they are gathering additional feedback might kind of gauge where they're at, where they could say, oh, people do want, one thing that I've seen in my comments is what's up with this 32 round mag in the assault rifle compared to a 60 round mag, like that kind of thing. Those little details, which isn't exactly a little detail, but you can have people that are giving feedback on that kind of thing they can bake in. So on top of that, also, one thing that I think factors into this is that you have to ease people into Halo on PlayStation 5, right? Like if we had been having this conversation 3 years ago, our heads would be exploding right now. You know, like it's just not something you would ever think of. Halo on a PlayStation at the beginning of this generation feels like it would be something where, like, you know, is it crack you smoke? You know, like you know, it's just not. You would never expect that. So I think they had to kind of inch those things into where it's like Sea of Thieves, Hi-Fi Rush, Grounded. Everybody's like, okay, that makes sense. And then you're like, okay, well, now we're getting Gears. You're like, oh, okay, well, now Halo's coming. Like, you know, you can kind of feel it progressively coming. Forza obviously was another big one. So I think they had to space those out to where it's not just, you know, it's like dipping your toe in the pool to see if it's warm. Like you dip it in and kind of get used to it. And then slowly but surely you go all in on bringing more games to more people on third-party platforms. So I think those two factors kind of play into where I'm thinking about the release date and how they chose that.
I'm with Klitschko and Doe and thinking that it's going to be in the first half of 2026, and I see El Nini echoing some of the logic I was thinking. Back half of 2026 is GTA and Wolverine, and you want to avoid those things. Halo needs the spotlight if you really do want to return it to form, and I feel like, I mean, Xbox is so fractured in what they're trying to do right now between Microsoft gaming, Xbox proper, the marketing elements, but like you can see them trying to bring it back. They even put Spartans in the most recent season of Fortnite, which everyone's forgotten by now, but they're trying to introduce it to different audiences. It'll be interesting to see what they do, you know, with the avenues they have available to them. Are you going to see Master Chief in Black Ops 7? Like, do you see that armor pop in there? We talk about that all the time, but ahead of this launch, you want people aware that Halo is coming out. Do you see, you know, campaign evolved armor for purchase in Black Ops 7? I think it's a smart thing to do, but we'll find out. Nonetheless, I'm looking forward to this in a way that I don't think I was expecting to be looking forward to it when I knew that there was a Halo announcement. And Sam, you had a lot to do with that, so I appreciate that. There is a lot to look forward to on the Halo front, but I think we all in the Xbox camp are cautiously optimistic. We've been hurt before, kind of thing. I love Infinite. I genuinely, it's one of my favorite. If it's not my favorite Halo, it's my second favorite behind Reach. But there is kind of this weird kind of cloud shadow over top of Xbox in general right now, because we get news from Jason Schreier this past week that, you know, in the month where Xbox is celebrating 3 first-party releases, Outer Worlds 2, Keeper, Ninja Gaiden, Call of Duty's next month, we've got this weird overhanging awkward vibe that Jason Schreier reporting that Amy Hood is saying, hey, you need to hit 30% profit margins for the Xbox division post Activision acquisition. But the average for the industry at its most is 22%. So typically in the gaming industry, 17 to 22% profit margin, Xbox expected to hit 30. What does that mean for future projects? We know it means they're multi-platform, but now what? And I have this weird feeling about getting excited for any upcoming Xbox game. And I've said for months, years now, I don't necessarily love Xbox anymore, but I do love Xbox games. Halo, Gears, Forza, Doom. Those are my favorites. How are we feeling knowing that Xbox is in this kind of fundamental change? Does that inhibit your ability to be excited for Xbox games? Sam, we'll start with you on this one.
I don't think it inhibits my ability to do it, but I think that that report that came out about the 30% expectation, I think that helped explain so much of the choices that have been made. Obviously, layoffs are horrible, but layoffs come with increased expectations to increase those profit margins, and so that makes sense. Not that that was a revelation for anybody. But within the same week, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but these reports of the next Xbox being like basically a super high-end PC that's meant for a premium experience. And then you combine that with games like Halo going third-party going forward that Brian Gerard confirmed, sketched last night on the Halo live stream. The future of Halo is multi-plat. I think when you combine all of those things together, that's where you start to see, oh, this is now becoming more than ever a focus on the software over the hardware, and increasing profit however you can. So it's getting it on cloud. It's getting it on any kind of ad-supported cloud tier, which we saw was confirmed through Microsoft, where they had confirmed, I think, Tom Warren's report from The Verge a couple of months back of it was being tested internally. And you combine that with PlayStation, which will obviously continue to thrive because of the way they're set up. I think the question is 30% doesn't seem to be realistic for the broader gaming industry, but is Microsoft seeing Xbox as a part of the broader gaming industry, or are they kind of treating it as its own entity within Microsoft? Because on one way, that could push it to being a more profitable business. On the other side, you're left with people that are out without jobs. You've got games that are getting cut that might be not promising to prove to be lucrative. You've got changes to the hardware division. Obviously, we know we're getting a next-gen Xbox now, but definitely a big shift from what we have with the Xbox Series S potentially, where that launched at $300 and it was like the best deal in gaming combined with Game Pass. And so clearly a monumental shift has happened behind the scenes over the past couple of years that will prove to be the right move or the wrong move here in the next 5 to 10. So we'll see how it goes.
Logan?
2020 was the year I believed Xbox would actually win a generation outside of the 360. They announced hardware that was competitive. They offered back compat. They offered FPS boost, auto HDR. They showed me that you could have an entry-level system that was competent and didn't sacrifice anything except for resolution and frame rates, with a cheaper introduction of the Series S. And it truly felt like Xbox was shooting for everyone to adopt Game Pass, and Game Pass was going to be the way that you had your library of games and still got access to the day ones. Fast forward 5 years, and I don't think that any of that has changed, but I don't think that it is any longer for everyone. I now think that they are trying to push themselves into the kind of top, they're trying to push themselves into the niche category of enthusiast hardware and consoles, whereas that is typically where I would say most companies fail. Apple is one of the few companies that can excel at selling their product as a premium product, even if the features and software set are available on other pieces of hardware, because they are tying their ecosystem in so closely to their hardware that people just appreciate and have been indoctrinated into the ease of using their software and using their hardware. And looking at Microsoft and what they're trying to do, the 30% and the raise in cost of like dev kits, the raise in cost of hardware, the raise in cost in software, the raise in cost of services, it feels like they are trying to make up for someone else's boo-boo. And I don't know if that's Satya's decision to invest so heavily in AI. I don't know if that's market conditions or the economics of our world right now. I don't know where it all comes from or where it's all kind of leading, but the one thing that I think frustrates me the most about it is that these feel like moves and plays that are not in service to the consumer, which for anything that I do when it comes to podcasting, it always comes down to how is this going to affect me, the consumer, and other consumers like me? And that's where I feel like they are not doing stuff that is going to continue appreciating the folks that have been fans or the folks that could have been fans if they start to push themselves into an area where they're trying to become that premium niche product. Because not everyone has the expendable cash to be tossing at, a $1,200 phone or a $1,000 home console or a $1,000 handheld PC. Those things are just not that case. And we've always said, Game Pass has always been the best deal in gaming. And while that may still be the case, even with the price hike, it still starts to bring into question, why are consumers having to pay for a company that has always had record profits? Why they're getting record profits for a reason, but I don't like that the consumers are consistently having to be asked to pay more for that.
I think when you look at Amy Hood's approach post ABK deal, there's a big change in how Xbox is approaching their consumer base. And I feel like they really made a sincere shot. Xbox as a whole made a sincere shot to grab more gamers at the beginning of this generation and trying to recoup the lost ground from the Xbox One generation. But it just didn't work. I think the launch of Redfall and Starfield really missed the mark. And
what's Redfall? You keep bringing up Redfall.
There is an interesting kind of dichotomy in what they're doing between what they tried to do. Right now, Xbox, Sarah Bond is saying that like it's an antiquated model to have exclusives. I kind of laugh at that because you look at Nintendo having tons of exclusives selling their units. You look at PlayStation, exclusives are what built the platform of PlayStation, and then cutting third-party deals in that as well. Xbox has tried many times to be the most powerful system on the market to garner users, and it's not necessarily been the case. And I think this kind of impetus to have 30% profit margins has just changed the strategy of Xbox and the way that they're going to look at their gaming division going forward. All that to say, I think it sucks. It hurts as an Xbox fan in many ways. The counterpoint is that you're in third place, you're losing, and what you're doing now is bringing more games to more people. And again, we're talking about this instead of the fact that they're launching 3 first-party games this month. All of the games they've launched this year have been good to great, which is also an interesting thing as well. When you look at the Metacritic for Outer Worlds 2 is last I saw hovering around 84. But Keeper got great reviews. Ninja Gaiden, good reviews. There's none of the games they're putting out are bad. We haven't had a Redfall situation. And so it's quite fascinating to me that this is the conversation next to all these games that they are releasing when their competitors are not releasing nearly the same amount. It's just a strange situation to be in, and Xbox is sitting promptly in third, asked to do more. And it's a very, I don't know how I feel about it other than I'm really glad I'm getting more games. I'm really sad that my next console may not be Xbox because of Xbox. It'll be because I can get access to the free games I'm building in my Epic library or Steam or something. And that's a strange feeling.
Yeah, it is pretty odd. The more that I've thought about it over the past couple of days, because we had the potentially super expensive premium Xbox hardware discussions, then we've had the discussions around PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 6 potentially costing more, but still significantly less, like potentially half of the next gen Xbox, even if the next gen Xbox is effectively a super powerful PC. And I visited the Microsoft Redmond campus, and Building 92 is like where you can go, and they've got a little history museum, and they've got one of the original Xbox models in there. So I was taking pictures, but as soon as you walk in on the side of the store, they've got the giant "This is an Xbox" ad, right? So you've got the RG Allies, your cloud gamings, your stuff like that. And we all joke about PlayStation 5 being an Xbox, but I do think that's the way they're thinking about it. I haven't talked to a developer about this or anything like that, but when you hear about PlayStation 6 being, let's say, launching at $599 optimistically at this rate, and then you've got a beefy next-gen Xbox launching at potentially $1,000, I feel like internally at Microsoft, they're looking at that PlayStation as like, oh, well, that's our Series S. That's you can play our games over there if you want. Like that is effectively in their minds an Xbox. And then if you also want more powerful hardware, they have that if you're willing to pay the premium for it. And that's also an Xbox. Or if you want to go to Micro Center and build your own PC, or if you want to grab one of the allies, you can do that. And like, I think that is legitimately, that's the strategy. And I know we all make fun of it as a marketing campaign, but I do think that's the way that they're thinking about this next gen hardware lineup, because it's becoming less and less about that kind of like fence between different markets and more just about like, hey, find hardware that works for you. And then we'll kind of make it happen. I mean, even cloud gaming isn't the optimal way to play, but right now somebody can have a Series S and have cloud gaming, you know, if they're subscribed to one of the tiers that includes it, and still play some of the newer games that might not be accessible in the future. I think cloud gaming is actually available on Xbox One, if I remember correctly. So like hypothetically, that is a Series X if you've got a connection that can support that. And I do think that is the way they're thinking about it, for better or for worse. Like, I think that's the strategy.
Yeah. Logan, any other thoughts on that?
I just think it's good to know that they are putting their games anywhere, because it kind of reaffirms the sense that the games are the most important aspect of this. Whether Xbox continues to make hardware is up in the air. I think that their Surface line is, you know, really well received for the most part. I think that a lot of the stuff that they create does well. And I love the hardware team over there. That's the thing that I think hurts the most is that I want the series to succeed. I love my X. I think it looks beautiful. I think the wraps were a mistake, but that's, you know,
false. I have the Doom wrap and it's amazing.
I don't care. I think they're dumb.
Have the Black Ops wrap and it's okay.
Yeah. See,
Doom.
There's choices and there's opinions. Going back to some of the stuff that we constantly hear with like the comments about exclusivity not being important. I was talking to a chick last night on the phone, because we were discussing the PlayStation change with Halo and what I was thinking I might end up doing next console round. And it was just one of those things where and I think even Split End commented in the chat and said that that's what you know, exclusivity doesn't matter. It's antiquated. That's something someone in third place would say. It's like, oh, winning isn't everything. Sometimes it's just about making the effort. And it's like, that's what people in last place say. And in my mind, I was thinking about it and I was like, if they had bought ABK, if they had bought Bethesda and they wanted to be cutthroat in the industry, they absolutely could have made these all locked on hardware for the Xbox and PC. And they may have, you know, ticked off a lot of people, but it may have actually resulted in some competition on the hardware side, and it may have actually kept costs down. Who knows? It's a future that we can't really like see. We're in the future that we are now. But the one thing that I think at the end of the day, my takeaway is if Play Anywhere is truly Play Anywhere, then I hope that whatever I buy from Xbox that is a first-person game, or not a first-person game, a first-party game that is Play Anywhere, also plays on PlayStation, also plays on Switch. Allow me to actually play those licenses that I purchased after you decided that everything was going to be Play Anywhere on other platforms aside from just PC. And I don't know how they do that. That's a deal that they got to work out. But for all intents and purposes, if it's a physical hardware, if it's a physical game on PlayStation 5, there's a good chance I'm probably going to buy that just to have the physical version of it, because they're not even doing the physical for Xbox really anymore. And that's the thing that really kills me the most is I'm sitting here looking at like the physical stuff going over to PlayStation. I'm like, well, I would happily buy another edition of Sea of Thieves somewhere if I can get it physically.
But why? You can't even play Sea of Thieves unless you're online.
Because it's just having the actual memorabilia of it.
I
like
see.
This copy of Sea of Thieves is signed by 2 of the developers. That copy over there will eventually get signed by the developers. And I have that. I can actually physically have it and see it. And you can actually play Sea of Thieves offline. There is that safer seas mode that you can play without having to have an internet connection, if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that. That's what I remember from them talking about it. But that's one of those things where it's like, I like having the physical media for stuff, and having Halo Campaign Evolved would be cool in a physical collector's edition,
Agree.
even if it's on PlayStation 5.
I could see myself getting another. I mean, I have every Infinite statue that's not $500. I mean, I could see that.
Yeah.
I am curious. I want to kind of juxtapose this with the AI conversation because, of course, Microsoft has this big AI push next to this 30% margin. And of course, that you have to wonder what that means in the gaming division. Phil Spencer had to come out, as Sarah Bond has had to come out very much on the hardware stuff. Phil Spencer had to speak about, is Xbox or is Microsoft enforcing the use of AI in all things? There are even some clips from this most recent campaign evolved that sounded very AI in nature. The irony, of course, was that it was Cortana, who is an AI. But Phil insists that AI use within Xbox is completely up to the teams. There's no top-down mandate that really pushes a path to success. There are a number of quotes out there saying on the creative side that they do leave it up to the teams. Maybe, but I also feel like the Corpo Speak says use Copilot when you're in your email, use AI when you're in development of some kind. I find that interesting because Microsoft proper is investing so heavily into AI, and gamers so heavily seem to push back. Clutch Kwando saying he's never been forced to use AI. Of course, Clutch would know, and I respect his opinion on that. I wonder what this means. I am all for AI used as a tool because any construction worker that denied the use of a hammer when that was first introduced is a fool. The counterpoint being you don't want it to cost jobs and human elements. And of course, Halo itself, they're one of their art leads recently left with some pretty public comments that were very damning. I just wonder. And again, I don't know, but I do think it's worth putting that out there that this is a consistent question that we have to ask ourselves. Do we care? Do we not care? Where are we at?
Sam, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, for me, I think that I'm with you in that I think that AI, when used as a tool, is incredibly impactful. I mean, even when I think about my content creation, like Adobe, and this isn't a great example of like AI the way that we see it through Sora or things that are literally creating something out of just nothing more than a thought or a prompt. But whenever I'm making a thumbnail, I'll take a picture of myself doing some goofy YouTube smile, like doing whatever. And so then I throw that in the Adobe thing and it just removes all the background, something that would have taken me 20, 30, 45 minutes previously in your Photoshop software of choice. I use GIMP because it's free. So like something like that reduces the amount of time that I have to take to actually make something as a creator pretty substantially. I've done it with logos to remove it from images and things like that. And that's one use of AI. I'll chat with ChatGPT to like frame a thought. I'll kind of put a list of ideas that I've got and I'll say which one of these might be strongest or stuff like that, just to have another entity to bounce ideas off of. I think where it then comes to something that's more hostile than helpful is whenever you have like the discussions in the community now of literally replacing voice actors with AI in a way that totally takes away from the authenticity of the experience and is offensive to the people that might be affected by that. Obviously, there's been a huge discussion in the voice acting and acting community around the use of AI. And I forget who it was, but there's some celebrity that literally has a dedicated team that like is paid to take down false images of him that pop up online. And so that's becoming more and more of a problem. So when it's used to literally replace the creative process, I think that's where I draw the line. When it's used to supplement the creative process and it becomes a part of the way that you make something that still is intended to be impactful and meaningful and authentic and original, I think that's where it can be a big benefit. But I think I leave that up to the teams, like Phil would say. When I think about Double Fine with something like Keeper, I feel like that's a handcrafted, authentic, Tim Schafer-esque thing that was created from the collective minds of a group of people versus something that would be supplemented by AI. So it's totally, team to team, I would imagine.
Good, Logan. I didn't want to cut you off.
I would say, like, for me, my use of AI is to save time on things that I would normally do myself. If it comes to using artwork for any kind of production, like anything that I've ever done for Keelhauled, that has always been done where if I need artwork for it or if I need music, I do that myself or I hire someone to do it. What I will use AI for is going into an article or like patch notes for a game and asking Copilot to summarize it for me. Give me a bulleted list of the points so I can skim that, get an understanding. And then if I need further context, then I'll just keep the page open. And when I have time to read it, I'll read it. Things in Adobe are one of those situations where I know how to use Adobe fairly well. I use Adobe Photoshop all the time for stuff. The time it would take me to remove a background from an image would be roughly 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how complex the image is and how detailed I want to get down to with the select tool and, you know, the erase tool and all that stuff. Asking Copilot to do that, or asking Adobe to do that as far as like an AI tool, to me is just, it's labeled an AI tool, but tools like that have been in Adobe for a long time. Like you ask Adobe to change the hue or saturation of something. How is that any different than, you know, you making a prompt for it to do that? The difference is that you're going in and you're selecting the actual tool and you're adjusting the hue and the saturation yourself, as opposed to typing in the box, can you make this, and this red? And that to me is the difference when it comes to being used as a tool. Mm-hmm. I would prefer companies like Treyarch and Raven to not use it when they're trying to build stuff like load screens or artwork for their store or for their events when it comes to Call of Duty, because seeing a 6-fingered zombie Santa is weird out of context and it just doesn't fit and it feels cheap and it feels like rushed. And if they don't have time to do good quality content or they can't hire people to do that job, then I think it's worth addressing like the management aspect of this. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, if your team can't do it and you don't have the people to do it and it comes down to cost, maybe you don't get to do that thing. Maybe we don't just rely on AI to pump out, you know, poorly rendered stuff with bad quality assurance and toss that into a game where people are spending money.
Yeah. Well, gents, I'm going to move us on. Good points made by both. I mean, obviously AI is a big topic and it's just something I feel we need to put out, or we need to comment on, particularly with Phil Spencer having to comment on it. But much like the hardware with Xbox, the train's already moving. I think we're just trying to figure out where we're getting on or where we're getting off when it comes to a lot of this stuff. As an Xbox fan, I will tell you, I love the games and that's what I'm going to keep playing, and where I play them, that's the part I'm not sure about. I just know I'm going to keep playing them. Before we close out here today, I do want us to talk briefly about the Outer Worlds 2. Logan called it out at the beginning of the show. He put up a review this past week. He did a very good job on it. He played a lot of hours in that game. We had it early. Credit to Xbox. Thank you for the code. We had it early, and still the game was so big. He was coming in under the wire, which was, I know he worked hard on. The reviews for the Outer Worlds 2 stand promptly with a Metacritic score of 84. People seem to be very much appreciative of this one. PlayStation Universe giving it a 9 out of 10. Games Radar 4.5 out of 5. Game Informer 8.8 out of 10. IGN 8 out of 10. Push Square 7 out of 10. VGC on the lower end of that with a 3 out of 5. I have not played this one yet. I did have access to it, but I've been stuck very much in the spooky games for a lot of reasons, and I'm so excited to talk about those at some point. But Outer Worlds 2 seems like it's doing very well. Review wise. Sam, have you had a chance to go hands on with that one?
I have not. No, I think going back to, I think Todd Oxtra had put a comment in about the spacing of the marketing. And I kind of feel that, I'm sure you guys feel it too, as somebody, as a pair of people that review games and go hands on with a lot of stuff. It's like, you've got XYZ, like Ninja Gaiden in the Outer Worlds. And then you've got this Halo campaign, you know, like I got to fly out. So I have not had a chance to play. But I have watched a lot of different people and their reviews on it. And I think that it's really promising to be able to see that it's basically more of the Outer Worlds and then kind of amplified and just made better and a little bit more refined. At least that's what I'm seeing from a lot of people. So I did get a code for review. I'm planning on playing that when I get home, but I also need to finish Ninja Gaiden 4 and then COD's on the way. And then Battlefield 6 still needs grinding, and then Season 1's on the way. So it's like, you know, feast or famine, but it seems like there's a whole lot less famine and a lot more feast these days.
Yeah, big time. I'm very much in the same boat. Logan, now that your review's out, how are you feeling?
I feel like I want to go back and play through it a different way because I've already started a new save file and picked the traits and stuff that I know are going to benefit me the most through the playthrough. But I loved Outer Worlds 1. I thought it was quirky, it was funny, it took me out of it surprised me, and it kind of helped bridge the gap between Bethesda titles and standard RPGs that I'd played in the past. Outer Worlds 2 does everything that I want Outer Worlds to do, but with a new story that doesn't force you to have to know what happens in the first game to really enjoy it. All you really have to do is get the gist of what the different reputations are, and it's pretty straightforward. There's a super capitalistic faction out there. There's a super sovereign faction out there. There's a super religious faction out there, and those are kind of like the trifecta of like extremes that you could see when it comes to cultural groups in society, right? It's just ratcheted up to the 11th level on there. Outer Worlds 2 does a fantastic job of garnering Clutch Quando to give 10 gifted subs.
Jeez, thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you so much for that.
Wow. Thank you.
But yeah, the Outer Worlds 2, I think the things that were pain points for me with Outer Worlds 1 was when you were talking to someone, you always had that weird light in the back of their ear that always gave them the red ear. And it felt very kind of like frontal, just kind of very Bethesda in that sense. They've learned a lot about that. They've learned a lot about how to present like a conversation with people, so it feels a lot more natural, which is awesome. The writing's still good. The gunplay is so much better. Like, I know you, Luke, you had that interview with them. They talked about getting in contact with like the Halo team and wanting it to feel like Destiny 2.
Yeah.
They nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. Like feeling like you play with the shotgun and it feels like the shotgun, you crack open that triple barrel shotgun and it feels like Doom. And I'm just like, dude, it feels really good. So I love that. There's still work to be done on it, which is why I think we're seeing it kind of hovering around the same review score as what the first one did. But the things that I take umbrance with are small things. They don't impact the story. They don't impact the gameplay or the combat. They're little things like choices around like the secret card system or the impact to reputations and stuff like that. There's things like that I'm just like, take it or leave it. But they got rid of encumbrance. I don't have to sit there and worry about like how much stuff I pick up. It's fantastic. I don't have to break stuff down mid walk. I can stay out and do all the quests I want and not have to find a place to go scrap stuff or pick and choose things. But they've done a really, really nice job. And the RPG is still thick. It's still very much an Obsidian RPG. And I've been so happy about that. So I really enjoyed my time. I lament not being able to spend more time. If I had another week on this, I probably could have easily dumped at least another 20, 30 hours into it to be able to get like through all of the quests. But as it stands, I'll have to go back and do a lot of that on like my second playthrough.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Wow. Well, I feel like final topic here is just what we've been playing. Sam, I feel like you've kind of covered that as it was because of your trip. But I will tell you guys briefly, I have been on a spooky game galore of late. Playing through Daymare 1994 right now, which is kind of like this fan RE2 remake turned game that I'm really enjoying. I've been playing Plants vs. Zombies Remastered for a while. That's been a really fun game. They did a really good job with that remaster. I know that seems so silly, but like genuinely did a good job with that one. And it's fun to revisit an old classic that's not watered down with Battle Pass garbage. So that's a fun one. If you liked that game, you should absolutely play it. I also wrapped up Chronos New Dawn. It's one of my favorite games this year. Absolutely fantastic game there. And then I've been enjoying a lot of the spooky seasonal stuff in Marvel Rivals and Fortnite and oh my gosh, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds is GOAT. And then there's one other Dead by Daylight. I have an interview with the Dead by Daylight devs this Wednesday, which is kind of hopefully becoming an annual thing around Halloween, which is fun. So I've been enjoying a lot of spooky stuff there, which is cool. Someone said something. I couldn't tell who it was.
I just said nice.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm excited for that one. Sam, have you been playing anything that you didn't mention in the Haloverse today?
So I've been traveling all week, but I have been playing. I think I'm not sure if it's Ball Pit or Ball X Pit. I don't know what the official name of it is, but it's the one that I've seen a lot of people recommending, and it's basically like Brick Breaker with this little like resource management mini game in between rounds of Brick Breaker. Super cool vibe of a game, and it plays really well on the Ally. So that's been my like, I'm tired, I'm gonna play something to just unplug my brain for a minute. So I've been playing that. I've been getting into Ninja Gaiden 4 a little bit. I'm probably like 2 hours into that, so
It's
I need
fun
to
and fast, right?
Yeah, it's very fun. I mean, I have never, other than Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, been a big Ninja Gaiden player. Like that was the first one that I played earlier this year, and I dabbled in like Ninja Gaiden Black, the first one, because it was backwards compatible with that game shows its age. But Ninja Gaiden 4 feels great, looks great, very much enjoying that. Ball X Pit / Ball Pit, obviously campaign evolved this week with the demo. And yeah, I'm hoping for the next couple of weeks I can be like, you know what, I'm going to sit on that couch and I'm going to play some games instead of doing all this stuff, because I miss having time to just kind of vibe. So that'll be nice.
Nice. Very cool. Logan, how about you, buddy? I feel I know a lot of your time was in Outer Worlds.
Yeah, so I like the last big chunk of my time has been into Outer Worlds, but yesterday, and I'm going to set the record straight on this. I don't care what the devs say. I watch anime, so I'm used to seeing the little X in the middle of titles and stuff. It's just Ball Pit. Like,
okay,
we don't call it Hunter X Hunter. We don't call it Spy X Family. It's just Ball Pit. So that game is fantastic. It is like those Instagram ads where you see the guy who's shooting up the corridor of a row of zombies and you just get points and stuff. It's like someone was like, that's not a bad idea, but I think I can do it better. And they made it into that kind of like a Brick Breaker or Arkanoid, I think was the other game, the original game that they came out with that. That is such a vibe, dude. I love the Vampire Slayer aspect of getting the different characters and playing through the levels with them. I love that each one has like their own little weird quirk about it. Like, and like you said, having the kind of Sim City with Arkanoid Brick Breaker style gameplay where you have to kind of put your resources and your buildings in a certain way to kind of like pinball the characters that you unlock to get them to run through the resources so that you can build up more resources so that you can upgrade your resources and stuff. It's such a weird game to kind of throw, like, it's a melting pot of genres and things, but the gameplay loop is simple enough that it feels like 1943 or Arkanoid. And the Vampire Survivor like loop of it is so good to the point where for a while I forgot that I should probably go back to town and like upgrade stuff before I go back into my next playthrough, because I was like, I was so close to getting to that final boss that I just wanted to play again. And it got me to play again over and over and over again. And I think I actually was just looking at it. I think I've got 7 hours played, having starting it yesterday. So it's a little fun, I'm going to say.
Yeah. All right, boys. Well, I will tell everybody, thank you guys for watching live with us. We had an incredible chat this week, really and truly, a lot of concurrent viewers. Thank you guys so much for hitting that like button, for sharing, subscribing, and just hanging out with us. I'm for the 58th time, I'm going to tell you to go watch Sam's interview with the Halo Dev Studios. Sam, let everybody know where they can find your content primarily and what you've got going on in the next week or so.
Yeah, you can find me at JamPack Sam on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere you find content. It's always a fantastic time making stuff. Over the next couple of weeks, I've got some different hardware reviews coming up. Nothing as crazy as the Ally, but I did do a review on that. That's also doing really well. So if you want to learn more about the not beefed up Ally, just the regular one, I did review that. We'll set that for review. It's a super cool device. I was lucky to be able to go hands-on with that. But yeah, I feel like we're getting into like the Super Bowl of gaming here era, where it's like October, November, and December between now and the time Metroid Prime 4 drops. Just going to have a lot of cool stuff. So appreciate everybody for being along for the ride. And of course, thank you guys for inviting me to come on. Even though I don't have my typical cool setup with the good mic, you still let me be a part of the show. So I appreciate it.
Pleasure and honor is ours, my friend. I've always said you're the best of us. I meant it. So I'm just grateful for your
Not
time.
sure about that, but I appreciate it.
Logan, what you got going on, buddy?
Keelhauled is kicked off their third act of season 17, and there's a Reaper Fortress out there that is probably one of the hottest things that Sea of Thieves has gotten in there in a while. They've completely revamped it, and the gold's really awesome. So I'm going to be sitting down with my community members later today to go and talk about that, as well as some of the narrative choices that they're making that might actually kind of reinvigorate the story that was in Sea of Thieves. Not to like Pirates of the Caribbean level, but at least like for the fans, some stuff that we got going on. But outside of that, that's everything that I have going on. I'm just genuinely looking forward to jumping into Fallout 76 because of the new content that they're bringing. More Ball Pit. Bounty Star just got released on Game Pass as well, that I loved playing through when I was at SGF with you. So I'm looking forward to jumping into that and playing some mech farm simulator style gameplay that just it was awesome. I can't wait to actually jump into that, and yeah, maybe trying to get back into Outer Worlds for another playthrough.
There you go, man. There you go. Well, guys, I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of the week. If you're enjoying spooky games, drop your recommendations in the comment section, because I am loving my spooky season. I hope everyone has a great week. Take care of yourselves, and peace out.